In the quiet heart of southwestern Iowa, nestled amidst rolling farmlands and whispering cornfields, lay the town of Villisca. The year was 1912, and this small community, with its neat homes and friendly faces, epitomized the American ideal of peace and prosperity. Life moved at a leisurely pace, dictated by the seasons and the gentle rhythm of rural existence. Children played freely in the streets, their laughter echoing through the sun-drenched afternoons, while neighbors gathered on porches to share stories and a cup of coffee. It was a place where doors were left unlocked, and the notion of true evil felt as distant as the bustling cities on the horizon. At the center of this idyllic tableau lived the Moore family. Josiah, a respected and industrious businessman, owned a successful implement dealership. His wife, Sarah, was a beloved figure in the community, known for her kindness and devotion to her 6 children. Yes, 6 children: Herman, Catherine, Boyd, and Paul, the 4 youngest, filled their home with joy and youthful energy. Their house, a modest but comfortable 2-story structure, stood as a beacon of warmth and stability on East 2nd Street. On this particular Saturday evening, their household was even fuller, imbued with the excitement of impending festivities. 2 additional guests had graced their home: Lena and Ina Stillinger, cherished friends of Catherine Moore. The Stillinger sisters, aged 12 and 8 respectively, had been invited for a sleepover, their youthful exuberance adding another layer of cheer to the already lively Moore residence. Their presence was a testament to the close-knit bonds that defined Villisca, where children moved freely between homes, and every neighbor was an extended family member. The girls were particularly thrilled about the upcoming Children's Day program at the local Presbyterian church, an event that promised games, songs, and ice cream, and one that had drawn the Stillinger girls to spend the night with their friends. Beneath the surface of this apparent tranquility, however, a faint tremor of unease occasionally rippled through the town. Whispers of old superstitions, tales of drifters passing through, and the occasional rumor of petty squabbles served as a subtle counterpoint to the pervasive sense of security. These were minor anxieties, easily dismissed in the face of such overwhelming communal harmony, yet they lingered, like shadows at the edge of a summer day, hinting at vulnerabilities rarely acknowledged. The evening of June 9th unfolded like countless others, filled with the simple pleasures of small-town life. After attending the Children's Day program rehearsal at the church, the Moore children and their 2 young guests returned home, their minds buzzing with excitement for the next day's event. Josiah and Sarah, their hearts undoubtedly full watching their children and their friends, prepared for a quiet night. The house settled into a peaceful lull as twilight deepened. The last known moments of the 8 souls within were those of contented domesticity, of tired children drifting off to sleep, their dreams surely filled with the promise of tomorrow. The lights in the Moore house dimmed one by one, plunging the home into darkness, a profound silence descending upon it. It was a silence that held no answers, only a chilling quiet before the storm that would forever shatter Villisca's innocent slumber. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. The sun rose on June 10, 1912, casting its golden rays over Villisca, a stark contrast to the darkness that still clung to the Moore residence. Mary Peckham, a neighbor living directly across the street, noticed an unsettling stillness about the Moore house. No smoke curled from the chimney, no sounds of children playing, no sign of Sarah Moore tending to her morning chores. The silence was profound, unnatural, a heavy blanket draped over the usually vibrant home. By 7 o'clock, concern began to gnaw at Mary. She tried knocking on the door, calling out but received no answer. A growing sense of dread tightened its grip as the hours passed, each moment of quiet deepening the unease. Finally, around 8 o'clock, Mary contacted Josiah's brother, Ross Moore, a local hardware store owner. Ross, sharing her apprehension, rushed to the house. He tried the front door, found it locked, then retrieved his spare key. The moment he stepped inside, a chilling sensation washed over him. The air was thick, heavy, a tangible presence of something terribly wrong. He called out to his brother and sister-in-law, his voice swallowed by the oppressive quiet. As he moved cautiously through the silent house, a horrifying discovery awaited him in the downstairs bedroom. The scene that met his eyes was one of unimaginable brutality, a tableau of terror frozen in time. What Ross found that morning sent shockwaves through Villisca, shattering its peaceful facade into a million irreparable pieces. The entire Moore family, Josiah, Sarah, and their 4 children, along with the 2 Stillinger girls, Lena and Ina, lay dead, bludgeoned beyond recognition. An axe, presumably the murder weapon, lay near the bodies, its head caked with dried blood. Every mirror and window in the house had been meticulously covered with clothes or sheets, a chilling detail suggesting a deliberate attempt to conceal the horrific act, or perhaps to prevent the victims' spirits from escaping. The victims themselves were found in their beds, their bodies covered by bedclothes, creating a macabre sense of order amidst the chaos. It was immediately clear this was no ordinary crime, but a methodical, brutal massacre, executed with a chilling precision that defied explanation. The news spread like wildfire, igniting a blaze of terror and disbelief that consumed the small town. Neighbors, friends, and townspeople rushed to the scene, their faces etched with horror and grief. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd as the grim reality sank in. The idyllic image of Villisca was irrevocably shattered. Panic seized the community. Doors that had always been open were now bolted shut. Suspicion, a venomous serpent, began to coil around every corner. Parents clutched their children tighter, their minds racing to comprehend the incomprehensible. Who could commit such an atrocity in their peaceful town? Early theories emerged amidst the chaos and fear. Some whispered of a transient, a nameless drifter passing through, leaving a trail of blood in his wake. Others pointed fingers at a jealous lover, a scorned individual seeking vengeance. Still others speculated about a business rival, a dark undercurrent to Josiah Moore's successful ventures finally erupting in violence. The sense of violation was profound, the town's innocence irrevocably lost. The once comforting familiarity of their homes now felt like a fragile shell, easily breached by an unseen evil. The very notion of safety had evaporated, replaced by a pervasive, chilling fear. As the initial shock began to subside, a terrifying question hung heavy in the air, echoing in the hearts of every Villisca resident, a question that would haunt them for decades to come. Who could have done this? The answer, elusive and terrifying, remained hidden in the shadows of that dreadful morning. The chilling question, who could have done this, reverberated through Villisca, a desperate plea for understanding that soon turned into a desperate need for answers. With the local authorities overwhelmed by the sheer brutality and scale of the crime, renowned detectives and investigators from across the state converged on the small Iowa town. Their arrival brought with it a glimmer of hope, but the crime scene itself offered little in the way of clear, unambiguous evidence. Fingerprints were scarce, footprints inconclusive, and the meticulous covering of mirrors and windows baffled even the most seasoned professionals. The sheer audacity and calculated nature of the attack suggested a perpetrator who left no obvious trace, a phantom in the night who had vanished as swiftly as they had appeared. As the official investigation struggled to gain traction, the townspeople of Villisca, reeling from the trauma, began to turn inward. Suspicion, a corrosive acid, began to eat away at the once unbreakable bonds of community. Every stranger became a potential monster, every neighbor a possible conspirator. Whispers replaced open conversation, and furtive glances became the new currency of social interaction. 2 names quickly rose to the forefront of public speculation, becoming the initial focal points of the investigation: Frank Jones and William Mansfield. Frank Jones, a prominent local senator and a shrewd businessman, had been a business rival of Josiah Moore. Their relationship, while outwardly cordial, was known to have its undercurrents of tension, particularly concerning a lucrative farm implement dealership. Was it possible that the competitive spirit had escalated into something far more sinister? The idea, while shocking, provided a tangible motive in a sea of incomprehensible violence. Then there was William Mansfield, a drifter whose past was checkered with violence and unsettling behavior. He was known to frequent the area, his transient nature making him an easy target for suspicion, a convenient scapegoat for a town desperate to externalize its fear. The psychological impact on Villisca was profound and devastating. Children, once free to roam, were now kept indoors, their innocent laughter replaced by the anxious silence of their homes. Adults, once quick to offer a helping hand, now viewed each other through a veil of distrust. The shared tragedy, instead of uniting them, had fractured the community into myriad factions, each clinging to its own theories, its own version of the truth. Friendships frayed, and long-standing relationships crumbled under the weight of unspoken accusations. The very fabric of Villisca, once woven with threads of trust and familiarity, was unraveling thread by painful thread. The immense pressure to find a culprit led to increasingly desperate and, at times, ethically questionable interrogation tactics. Investigators, eager to deliver justice and quell the surging panic, pursued leads with an intensity that sometimes bordered on obsession. It was during this period of heightened scrutiny and communal paranoia that Reverend George Kelly emerged. A traveling preacher, Kelly had been in Villisca on the night of the murders. His erratic behavior, his self-professed psychic visions, and his peculiar obsession with the case soon drew the attention of authorities. He seemed to possess an intimate knowledge of the crime, details that only the perpetrator could know. Yet his narrative was often disjointed, riddled with inconsistencies. Reverend Kelly's presence further muddied the already murky waters of the investigation. His fervent declarations, sometimes claiming guilt, other times vehemently denying it, created a whirlwind of confusion. Was he a tormented soul seeking attention, a disturbed individual with a dark secret, or merely an innocent man caught in the crosshairs of a desperate inquiry? The town, already divided by the Frank Jones and William Mansfield theories, now had another enigma to contend with, another figure around whom their fears and suspicions could coalesce. The once close-knit community was now a battleground of competing theories and accusations, tearing the social fabric apart with each passing day, leaving a deep, festering wound that would refuse to heal. The swirling confusion surrounding Reverend George Kelly reached a peak when he finally confessed to the Villisca murders. His detailed account, delivered with a chilling blend of fervor and theatricality, initially seemed to provide the long-awaited breakthrough. He spoke of voices, of divine instruction, and of a perverse mission to punish the sinful. However, as investigators meticulously cross-referenced his statements with the known facts of the crime scene, glaring inconsistencies began to emerge. His descriptions of the house's layout, the victims' positions, and the sequence of events often contradicted the evidence. He claimed to have used a different weapon, then changed his story. His erratic behavior, once seen as a sign of a tormented soul, now appeared more like a desperate cry for attention, or perhaps the ramblings of a deeply disturbed individual. Under intense scrutiny and repeated questioning, Kelly eventually recanted his confession, claiming he had been coerced and that his visions were mere delusions. The fleeting hope that had gripped Villisca dissolved, replaced by a deeper sense of despair and frustration, as the truth once again slipped through their grasp. With Kelly's confession discredited, the spotlight swung back to Frank Jones, the prominent local senator and Josiah Moore's business rival. Despite the lack of direct physical evidence connecting him to the crime, the prosecution, fueled by public pressure and a desire for a conviction, moved forward with a sensational trial. The case against Jones was largely circumstantial, relying heavily on the testimony of a bitter former employee who painted a picture of a man capable of extreme jealousy and hostility towards Josiah. The courtroom became a theater, with Villisca and indeed the nation watching intently. The Jones family endured unimaginable public humiliation, their reputation and standing in the community irrevocably tarnished. They fought fiercely for Frank's innocence, their lives upended by the insidious whispers and outright accusations. The trial became a grueling ordeal, a public dissection of the family's character, and a relentless attack on Frank's integrity. As the legal proceedings unfolded, other potential suspects and red herrings emerged, further muddying the already opaque waters of the investigation. A man named Henry Lee Moore, no relation to the victims, A known serial killer with a similar modus operandi was considered. Transient drifters known to frequent the rail lines near Villisca were rounded up and questioned. Each new lead, each fleeting theory, promised resolution, only to unravel under examination, leaving investigators more bewildered than before. The media, sensing a national sensation, descended upon Villisca like vultures, their sensationalized reports turning the small, grieving town into a macabre spectacle. Headlines screamed, theories proliferated, and the privacy of the victims and their families was mercilessly invaded. The case became a morbid fascination, eclipsing all other news, turning Villisca into a household name, synonymous with unspeakable horror. The frustration among the investigators grew palpable. Despite their tireless efforts, the promised leads went cold, and the most promising theories proved to be dead ends. The meticulous crime scene, which had initially offered so little, continued to guard its secrets, defying every attempt to force a confession from its silent walls. The enduring psychological scars on the survivors and witnesses were profound. Children who had lost parents or friends carried the trauma into adulthood, their lives forever shaped by the brutal event. Neighbors who had once shared communal bonds now harbored deep-seated distrust, their sense of security shattered beyond repair. Finally, after a lengthy and emotionally draining trial, Frank Jones was acquitted. The jury, unable to find sufficient evidence to convict him beyond a reasonable doubt, delivered a verdict that, while legally sound, left the town in a state of unresolved anguish. The acquittal did not bring peace. Instead, it deepened the mystery, reaffirming the terrifying notion that the perpetrator of the Villisca Axe Murders still walked free. The question of who could have done this hung heavier than ever, a perpetual unanswered lament echoing through the quiet streets of Villisca, leaving a gaping wound that refused to heal. The passage of time, an indifferent river flowed relentlessly through Villisca, carrying away the immediate shock and raw grief, yet leaving an indelible mark on the town's soul. Years turned into decades, and the brutal murders of the Moore family and the Stillinger girls remained an open wound, an unanswered question etched into the very fabric of the community. The case, once a raging inferno of public attention, cooled into a persistent, chilling enigma, whispered about in hushed tones, its details passed down through generations. The once vibrant Moore home, the scene of such unimaginable horror, transformed from a private tragedy into something else entirely, a site of morbid curiosity, a magnet for those drawn to the macabre. It became known, ominously, as the Villisca Axe Murder House. Its unassuming facade, a typical early 20th century Midwestern dwelling, belied the darkness within. Visitors from across the nation, and even the world, began to pilgrimage to Villisca, not for its agricultural bounty or charming small-town allure, but for a glimpse into the heart of a century-old mystery. Many came as thrill-seekers, hoping to commune with the spectral remnants of the past. Others arrived as earnest paranormal investigators, armed with their electromagnetic field detectors and spirit boxes, convinced that the trauma inflicted within those walls had left an energetic imprint, a lingering echo of the tragedy. Personal accounts from these visitors painted a consistent picture of unease. Guests staying overnight reported disembodied voices, often childlike, whispering in the darkness. Objects moved seemingly on their own accord, doors would creak open and shut without explanation, and cold spots permeated the air even on the warmest nights. Some spoke of a heavy, oppressive feeling that settled upon them the moment they crossed the threshold, a pervasive sense of dread that clung to their skin. One woman claimed to have seen the fleeting shadow of a small figure darting through the hallway, while a seasoned investigator described the distinct sensation of being watched by unseen eyes, a chilling presence that raised the hairs on his neck. The house, it seemed, had absorbed the anguish and terror of that fateful night, becoming a repository of sorrow, a living monument to the unsolved crime. The enduring impact of the murders stretched far beyond the walls of the house, touching the lives of the descendants of both the victims and the suspects. Generations later, the weight of the past continued to be carried, a silent burden inherited through bloodlines. For the Moore and Stillinger families, the specter of their murdered ancestors remained, a constant reminder of the senseless violence that had stolen their loved ones. For the descendants of Frank Jones or Reverend George Kelly, the lingering suspicion, the historical accusations, cast a long shadow, forcing them to grapple with a past they had no part in creating. The whispers of Villisca, though faded by time, still echoed in their family histories, shaping identities and perpetuating a quiet, communal grief. Despite the passage of a century, the case continued to captivate a dedicated cohort of amateur sleuths and armchair detectives. They meticulously pored over old newspaper clippings, court transcripts, and investigative reports, searching for the overlooked detail, the forgotten clue, the missing piece of the puzzle that might finally unlock the truth. Online forums buzzed with theories, arguments, and passionate debates, each new discovery, however small, sparking renewed hope that closure might finally be within reach. These individuals, driven by a profound sense of justice and an insatiable curiosity, refused to let the Villisca Axe murders fade into the dusty annals of history. The house itself, a silent witness to history, had become more than just a structure. It was a character in this enduring narrative. Its weathered boards and creaking floors held secrets, its darkened rooms guarding the truth with an unwavering silence. It stood as a stoic sentinel, a physical embodiment of the tragedy, forever holding its secrets, beckoning to those who dared to listen. Villisca, once an anonymous dot on the Iowa map, had reluctantly embraced its dark tourism, a grim pilgrimage site. This morbid fascination, while unsettling, served a purpose. It kept the memory of the victims alive, ensuring their story was not forgotten, and perhaps offered a strange, unconventional path towards healing, a collective acknowledgement of the horror that had forever altered their town. The question of whether the truth would ever be known lingered like a persistent fog, emphasizing the haunting, unresolved presence of the tragedy. The Villisca Axe murders, a century later, remain a haunting tapestry woven from fragmented clues, conflicting testimonies, and the chilling absence of a definitive culprit. The theories, as numerous as the years that have passed, swirl around the same few figures, each with their own dark possibility. There was Frank Jones, the disgruntled business rival, whose animosity towards Josiah Moore was well documented, but whose alibi, however flimsy, ultimately held up in court. Then William Mansfield, the drifter with a violent past, a man whose movements often coincided with similar brutal crimes across the Midwest, yet never definitively linked to Villisca. And of course, Reverend George Kelly, whose bizarre confession and subsequent retraction cast a long, unsettling shadow, leaving investigators and the public alike questioning his sanity, his guilt, or both. Each suspect, each theory, offers a tantalizing glimpse into what might have happened, yet none provide the irrefutable evidence needed to close the book on this horrific chapter. The lack of a clear answer has only deepened the mystery, transforming it from a mere crime into a foundational myth of American true crime. Unsolved crimes, especially those of such brutality and scale, leave an indelible scar on the communities they touch and the individuals who bear witness to their aftermath. For Villisca, the murders irrevocably altered its identity. The trusting, close-knit agricultural town of 1912 was replaced by one forever marked by suspicion and a pervasive sense of vulnerability. Generations grew up under the shadow of the axe, their collective memory shaped by the knowledge that evil had walked their streets, unpunished and unmasked. This profound impact extends beyond the immediate shock, permeating the social fabric and influencing the town's narrative for over 100 years. It serves as a stark reminder of humanity's capacity for darkness, a chilling testament to the fact that sometimes the monster truly does lurk unseen, even in the most idyllic settings. The enduring mystery of the Villisca Axe murders stands as a chilling reminder, not just of a single night of terror, but of a fundamental breach in the societal contract. It speaks to the fragility of peace and the terrifying ease with which it can be shattered. What lessons, one might ask, can be gleaned from such an event? Perhaps the most profound is the realization that justice for all our institutions and efforts is not always guaranteed. Sometimes the perpetrators slip through the cracks, leaving behind a legacy of unanswered questions and enduring pain. It is a lesson in humility for law enforcement, a stark demonstration of the limits of investigation when faced with a meticulously executed, yet seemingly motiveless act of violence. The lessons never truly learned, however, are perhaps the most unsettling. The persistent human tendency to demonize, to point fingers, and to allow fear to breed suspicion, often against the innocent. Yet, despite the lack of resolution, the power of storytelling keeps the memory alive, ensuring that the victims, Josiah, Sarah, the 4 children, and the Stillinger girls are not forgotten. Through books, documentaries, and the endless discussions of amateur sleuths, their names are spoken, their last moments reimagined, and the search for truth continues, however elusive. This persistent narrative is a testament to the human desire for justice, a collective refusal to let such an atrocity simply fade into obscurity. It is a way of honoring the lost innocents, a quiet protest against the silence that surrounds the identity of their killer. A final reflection on the victims reveals the true tragedy. 8 innocent lives extinguished in a brutal, senseless act. Their innocence lost, the shattered peace of Villisca, and the enduring question of why resonate through time. The Villisca Axe Murder House, with its creaking floors and spectral whispers, stands as a monument to this unresolved anguish, a place where the past refuses to die. Some mysteries, it seems, are destined to remain unsolved, forever haunting the landscape of our history, a poignant reminder of the enduring human desire for justice and closure, even when it remains eternally out of reach. The axe fell, the lives ended, and the questions lingered, echoing endlessly through the quiet fields of Iowa, a chilling lullaby sung by the wind.